Welcome to Morning Mantras and Pajama Praise. I am, by birth, Rebecca Parks, by marriage, Rebecca Alexander, and by spirit, NaymaFreedom. NaymaFreedom. And I thank you for coming to my channel. What my mission and my direction is, what my intention is to put a spotlight on the need for celebratory reflection of the matrilineal line of the women who were sex trafficked here legally um, and forced into labor um, for over 400 years. And it is now 160 years since the Emancipation Proclamation. It is my intention to sound the alarm that it is time, if we so choose, to rest, release, and return. And this reflection. Return where? Return to our being, return to our spirits, return to who we truly are in this time. We'll call it 2024 because that's the year that we've been given. That's the year we're told it is in this Julian, are we Julian calendar? Um, I get us confused with what the Ethiopian calendar is called. But in this time, there is a lot of transition going on, a lot of pain, a lot of war. And I'm reminded that there's nothing new under the sun per se, that my ancestors have been through this before, that your ancestors have been through this before. And I'm highlighting and focusing on the significance of the matrilineal line of the women who were enslaved in this country because it is most unique. It is a unique experience in which we were legally not people. It was a unique experience in which our identities were stripped from us. I would encourage you to read two books, um, North American Slavery by Audrey Smedley and Complicity, edited by Anne Varro and some others. It brings me great joy to know that not only will this too shall pass, but that myself, my lineage are evidence of when it all goes wrong. When it all goes wrong, when you're living a horror in real time, um, and not only does the story not end, but then it turns into something that looks like Jim Crow, and then the civil rights movement, and then the crack epidemic, and then integration, and the current day crazy. There are moments to give thanks and to give joy. I realize that each society has this thing, but I want to celebrate, reflect, rest, release, and return because we've been there, done that. Our DNA is encoded with the truth of those experiences, and it would behoove the world, it would behoove this nation if we rest now. If we rest. In our rest, there is calm. In our rest, there is peace. In our rest, there is nurturing. In our rest, there is a deep-seated wisdom of knowing that all will be well and all is well. He who has ears, he and she that has ears, let them hear. I come to you in all seriousness and all comfort because that mission has led me to hear, to know what is coming in several different timelines. I don't predict, but I do see possibilities. And the possibilities are based on what choices we choose to make as people. And as the winds shift, as the winds change, as the winds pick up with the howling of fear, I want to remind us that our greatest contribution is our heart work. Our greatest contribution to ourselves, to our family, to our society is our heart work. I was raised as a Christian, and now that I'm older, I seem to find the greatest clarity in Yeshua ben Yosef. And I say it like that because I am separating colonial Jesus and pre-Nicene prophet, right? Um, I'm separating those two. I'm separating white Jesus, Roman Jesus, marketing Jesus to the man who walked the earth with the Essenes. Okay. I come to you because the message 2,000 years ago and before and today is still the work of the heart. Each of our hearts, each of our souls has an energetic signature. You will know them by their fruits. Birds of a feather flock together. That we usually group ourselves based on a certain vibration, what is familiar. Well, you can see that energetically, right? And you can also feel it subconsciously or consciously. You can also feel it. And I want to give you the example is if you ever walk by somebody who, um, the hairs on your neck stood up for whatever reason, you notice the presence of a person for better or for worse. That is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that energetic signature. Sometimes it could be something that is great that we're unfamiliar with. Sometimes it could be something that is malice that we are familiar with. But whatever the case, we can identify with this spiritual touch of another person or another thing, right? And we've often said in old wives' tales that baby and dogs, right, trust who they flock to or who they flee from. So I'm coming to you about that part of us, the heart of us that emits an electronic signature, that emits the truth. And my personal walk and understanding who I am and what God is, that seems to be the part that is tapped into by the discerner. It's how we know by their fruits. That part is the truth. That part is not hidden. That part is not disguised. If it is disguised, it's usually disguised in the physical, right? Here on the physical plane, we can dress up things and make them look beautiful, make them smell good, right? You can mask things by attending to the carnal man or the five senses. But the electronic signature is the same. A man or woman can look beautiful, but somebody might say, there's something I can't put my finger on. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that that thing that reaches through the atmosphere, regardless of the package. I have a friend who coined the term attractive trash. And I love that because a lot of times that is what we're dealing with. It may be attractive to the eye, but really not of good use for the spirit. It's not for your highest good. I say all that to say that the heart matters are the most important matters. The heart matters define our pathway, determine which relationships we have, and help us to determine what we say in this physical plane is good or not good, wrong or right. But most importantly, what love is not, who God is and who God is not, what belongs to you and what doesn't belong to you. That is the priority at this moment. Understanding what love is and what love is not. Understanding what is your highest good for your highest good and what is not. And once you identify those things, to work on those areas. There is a justification that is in the air that I think a lot of us feel, right? We're making conscious choices, more aware choices of what we want and what we don't want. You guys have heard about maybe the new earth, third dimension, fifth dimension, bifurcation of timelines. People are using Judgment Day, people are using very different languages to describe something very similar. And what is happening is that there has to be a balance. There has to be what do we say that about? A reconciliation. There has to be a justification. Things have got to be balanced. Things have got to be proportioned back to the law. In the Bible, it says that the word does not turn back void, right? The laws of God. The word goes out and it does not return back void. I say that because there is a law of the universe, there is a law of God. And I will remind those who maybe have not heard me before, is I define love as God. I define love as the creator of all things, of all life, that God is love and love is God. And if it's not love, then it's not God. I'm not talking about there's not consequences based on us not following those laws. I'm talking about the thing, the entity that supports life, the thing, the entity that created this planet, and we all ended up here. The supporter of life, the creator of the sun, the moon, the stars, and the universes. That God. That scientists have identified that there is something within all of us on a molecular structure, on a molecular atomic scale, that has something in common with all the other things. That creator, that God. We have many names for this, but that's what I'm talking about. The justification will be in the heart. The justification will be in the heart. There is a scripture that it says, choose this day whom you will serve. There are some old energies on this planet that are not for our highest good. There's a debate on whether we created them or not, but nevertheless, our shadows have a way of suffocating us. And it is time to take our fragmented selves and call them back into ourselves with love as best as we know how. But there will be a pruning, there will be a reckoning. And as I say will be, technically there already is. There always is. But it may be more magnificent this time because a lot of us are more aware. In the times of slavery, right? Let's just take the United States where I am, the 400 years of slavery. There were a lot of, if you read certain texts, there were a lot of justifications. There were a lot of people shutting their eyes. There were a lot of people saying, well, they're not people anyway, or they're cursed by Ham. This is what they deserve. The humans had to do some type of justification in their brain to rape, to maim, to breed people like horses. There was something they had to do to their hearts in order to coexist with that type of darkness. And some of that still goes on today. What we're being called to do is to really, really, really seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all things shall be added unto you. Meaning, really seek your highest good and submit to all that God is. And I'm not talking about God in a divisive religious way again. I'm talking about that entity that's created all things is calling you back to your highest good of yourself, aligning yourself and understanding who you are, understanding that we are pieces of God, and that if you don't feel that way, then that's part of the reconciliation process. I'm reminded that not all things are serving to the purpose of our higher good. And I would ask for us to search our hearts and start the process, if we haven't already done so, of really dividing things that are not for our highest good. I am told that the harshness, that the horror, that most of the suffering pain is because we have so identified with shadows. We have so identified with entities that traditionally do not belong to us. We were created in the image of all that God is. We are made in the likeness of God. We have creator powers such as God, as Jesus calls and reminds us that we will do greater things than He. Miracles included, healing included, all of these things included, channeling included. That's how He was able to hear. So if this is our purpose, that we really need to search our hearts and start to disassociate for that which is not God and have the courage to let it go. And what I mean by that is there are some of us who identify with our pain, some of us who identify with our illnesses, some of us who identify with our hardships, and it's not God's and it's not yours. The default of yourself is healed and whole. But when Jesus said in one of those scriptures, you guys can tell me which one it is, that He came not to unite, but He came to divide, right? To remind you who you are, to get that gunk off of you that is not His. People will start to panic if the other person does not. The information that I received was judgment. And I don't want to bring up judgment as the traditional sense of judgment. It is a reconciliation that has to do with us rectifying our own hearts, getting back to who we are without our traumas, without our biases, without our cultural delineations, without our religious gangs, without our racism. And let me stop on that. Without our racism, without our stereotypes. And I say that as an American because our society has been built on that. But we will suffer if we cannot separate ourselves from that program. We will suffer horrendously if we cannot recognize the difference. Suffering is not necessary for the human condition. It's something that we've chosen. But in 2024, we can opt out. And that may sound very crazy to some of you, but these are choices that we make. These are choices that we make. We can choose to align ourselves with each other. Have you ever seen children go to a playground, whether it's a McDonald's playground, Burger King playground, or just out to play? Have you seen them just play? They just get on with the business of playing. And usually if there's some issue, an adult can step in and they reconcile it, but they play. They play. They're about the work of collaboration. They're usually not into killing another because another disagrees. They're usually about the mindset of playing. I remember the scripture where Jesus says, "Suffer you little children to come unto me, and that hurt one of these, it's better for him to tie, I think, a millstone around his neck and throw himself into the ocean." Because of the consequences and the generational traumas that will repeat itself for eons, if not interrupted. That's my interpretation of why he said that. Whatever you do to a child, my goodness, you do to 1,000 generations, if not uninterrupted. So I say that because we have an opportunity to search our own hearts, to take the log out of our own eyes, and to really submit ourselves to who and what love is, to really submit ourselves to what we know to be true, to really do the work of agreeing with who God is, regardless of how we were raised. It is so easy for us to want to belong. It is so easy for us to, it's very comforting to want to belong, to be part of a group. And a lot of times when we're walking into the truth of what we know is, we feel isolated. Maybe we're even physically attacked. Maybe we're actually threatened. we are in a time where we really have to decide what we're going to do if we are physically threatened. If we are, am I willing to defend myself with force? I'm not judging whatever you choose, but we need to decide that. Am I willing to harm another because I'm afraid? If someone says that in order for me to keep my life on this earth, I need to take another life, am I willing to do that? Am I willing to incur that type of trauma for myself? Am I willing to do that? So there's some background going on because I got a baby girl that's watching something at this time. So this is just real life happening. But those are questions that we need to begin asking ourselves. Am I willing to take a life because I disagree with someone? Because they disagree with me? Am I willing to take a life because an authority that I've placed over what love is and what God is has told me to do so? We are still responsible for our choices. No one is going to suffer the karma of our actions, the trauma of our actions, except us. The authority figure, if you are a consenting adult, will not, right? We are responsible for our own choice and our own actions. I was told that most of this pain that we will feel will be that family members, children, parents will make choices. They will make choices that may be in total contradiction of what we think they should do. They may make choices based on how they affiliate with pain and misery and suffering and belonging and grouping. They may make a choice based on what the group does, whether the group is making a conscious choice or not. They may choose to be offended because of shadow talk. And by that I mean if you identify yourself with who God is, right? Who God is. With you identify yourself as a piece of God and you understand what love is, then call me what you want. My journey, my role, my maturity hopes to just sit in stillness and peace. Will I feel some kind of something? I will. I'm human. But will I allow that something or something to have me take my invested limited energy to attack you and take your life in the process? No. Will I decide you don't need to live on this earth because of what you said to me? Those are decisions we're going to have to make. Am I going to damn my children? Am I going to damn others because they choose to identify with the shadows? Because they choose a different journey and path? Will I try to erase them from the planet? It is going to be very difficult to watch people choose to hold on to a story. And the stories that they hear may not be the stories that you hear. This is a whole separate section. Because the timelines are dividing, when Jesus says, "He who has an ear, let him hear," if we are not ready to hear spiritually, we will not. And you can't plead and beg people to hear what they simply do not hear. They are listening to something that you may not hear. They may hear something that you discern is not for their highest good. But if they don't hear it, they don't hear it. And we need to have compassion for them. But we cannot void their choices. They still have free will. They still get to consent for whether what they choose to do. What I'm talking about is honoring choices, setting boundaries for yourself, and it may be a lot of grief involved of relationships dissolving, disintegrating, maneuvering. I don't know if this is just a spiritual thing or people will be physically migrating from this nation to another. I'm not sure. But I do know that when we are in deep states of grief that we are not familiar processing, we can make some really strange choices based on pain. And so the message continues to be to prepare your hearts. Prepare your hearts, especially if you are of the lighter skin. And by that I mean what we traditionally call white people in America. Please prepare your hearts. Please prepare your hearts. Search your hearts. Look deep into yourself and start rightly dividing the truth from the non-truth, the shadows from the peace. If you are of the darker skin, I want you to do the same. I want you to check your heart for the shadows and the racial trauma. If you are of the matrilineal line of those kidnapped to this country and forced to labor for 400 years, my message to you is to rest, release, and return to who you truly are. Stand on autonomy and all groups to seek the highest good of the Creator of all things. Rightly divide and search your heart so that you may discern the truth of what love is and cast away that which is not. Our protection will be in the house of love. Our protection will be in our discerning what love is. If we know what love is, if we know who God truly is, beyond our culturalisms, beyond our traditions, but understanding the energetic signature of our Creator of all things and love in all things, then we will be able to trust. We will be able to vibrate together and build and trust and feel the rest and the safety of all that is. We may be able to extend help and have compassion to those who cannot hear and those that cannot see, those who are trying, those who are asking to understand the way to the truth and the light. But we must return to all that love is. It is a must. Your safety, your sanity, your peace, your journey, your processing, your calm will depend on that one thing. This has been important every day, right? This has been important, especially in the past 2,000 years. And it is a reminder of the shifts being made now. We are protected, divinely protected. I want to remind you, those of us who have the courage to do the work and the pruning and sit in the lotus flower of love, we are divinely protected if we so choose to be and stay in alignment. But we are still human and we may still grieve and we may still feel scattered, but we can still return to that love in community. And that community will come from the discernment of knowing who you can trust and the parts of yourself that you can trust, and especially what you will be hearing. Pray for openness, pray for communion, pray for sanity, and most of all, pray for the rectification of your own heart. We have lots of work to do on ourselves, so much work to do on ourselves that we really don't have time to look at what another is doing. We just don't have it anymore. The message is, please use all of your energy to reconcile your heart. If there's something you're holding against another, go to God and say, help me with this. Help me with this. I don't even know what to do with it. But guys, that's a seed, that's a start, and that is blessed. That is holy. When he said, Leave the altar, go to the brother. If you can't even go to the brother, then just get on your knees. God, help me with my faith. Help me with my understanding. Help me figure this out. Because my intention is to love. My intention is for healing and wholeness. May light shine on you. May light be with you. May you understand who you are. And may the truth that all is stand forevermore. Blessed be, and so it is.